Even the Bible said that God demanded honor, and whoever does something that is worthwhile at least deserves commendation. Clear case in question is the issue of Winnie, the girl who was brutalized by the Ahoda West local government chairman. The moment VDM came in, went out to do a public commendation. The civil society people too are human beings, and sometimes too they go home and feel bad about these things. After spending our own money, end up most times being thrown under the bus. We have a KO Baba in this town that has done so much for this city. KO Baba would have also been our own VDM. Ketamwala also be our own Deji Adeyanjuan. We have a culture here of hero worshipping. People from outside most of the times come and take accolades from the things that the people here in Rivers State have already done. And civil society people are not paid. But the village teacher syndrome here in Rivers State, people in the civil society suffered so much. We have a culture here of hero worshipping people from outside while downgrading or overlooking those who are here and not giving them much regards or the accolade that they deserve. The Rivers State Civil Society has been doing a lot for so many years in trying to ensure that we have a proper civic and a civil space here in a state where people can freely express themselves, where people are not oppressed, and where people will have a reason to feel free and live a comfortable life. Especially from 2015 to 2023, Rivers State actually had a lot of commendation to give to the Rivers Civil Society campaigners because, of course, this period was a period where we witnessed a lot of high-handedness, from the leadership of this state and the people in the Rivers civil society space, people in the CLOs, and many other civil society organizations. They did their best to try to ensure that space was not as toxic and not as brutal as it would have been without them. But then, most times, after putting so much effort, after putting so much energy, after spending our own money, after putting our lives in harm's way, we end up with no commendation. We end up most times with abuses. We end up most times being thrown under the bus, and of course it is very discouraging, and that's what I want to talk about today. Most times you see that the River State Civil Society or some public figure would champion a cause, go out there, struggle, suffer, to ensure that a matter is brought to the fore. And the moment that happens, you will now see scavengers and people who will come from Lagos most of the times to come and take accolades from the things that the people here in Rivers State had already done. And the people of Rivers State too are also suffering from what I call the village teacher mentality syndrome, where respect are not given to people that you know, irrespective of how important or how powerful or how consequential their actions or their contributions, to your life may be. As long as that person is someone that is from within, we have a tendency of not regarding them. And that is what the people in the Rivers State Civil Society has been facing for a very long time. We always have this derision that is attached to everything that we do, irrespective of how much we try, and that's not good. And a very clear case in question is the issue of Winnie, the girl who was brutalized and malhandled, by the Ahoda West local government chairman, an issue that has been trending for days currently. That issue actually started with a social media post, and then people picked up the post and started condemning it. And of course, it got to a journalist, a very renowned journalist here in Rivers State, Orwell Ene, who now took it to the civil society people who now took up the matter and has been fighting and doing everything to ensure that justice is served. But of course, after all of the effort that was put in, the people in Lagos, Abuja, of course, it became a national issue. All the mainstream media were talking about it. And then, of course, VDM, came into the matter. And of course, I commend him for his selfless service and all of that. But then, the very person in question, the moment VDM came in, went out to do a public commendation, went out to do a public thanks, and was praising and hailing VDM for coming through to come and save him and all of that, and not even mentioning, not even giving any credit whatsoever to the people here in Rivers State, the civil society organization here in Rivers State, and all the people who took up this matter upon themselves to ensure that this matter actually got the attention it deserved, to a point where people, sympathizers started coming and all of that. And today, as we speak, the young ladies flying on eagle's wing right now, the scavengers, like I do call them, are all trooping in, trying to get, traffic and accolades and recognition from this ordeal that has happened to this young lady. And as we speak, the young lady hardly thinks about, the foundation of how the matter started, or the people who actually helped, to bring this matter to the fore. And this is not the first time, it's not the second time it's been happening. But the truth is that the civil society people too are human beings. And sometimes too, they go home and feel bad about these things. In fact, I saw on the social media where people were beginning to criticize civil society that they had gone to collect money from the chairman. Oh, they have been bribed, they've been compromised, and now they're trying to now tilt towards the local government chairman and all of that. In fact, my very good friend, Chetam Mwala, had to do a public statement withdrawing from anything that has to do with that matter. But this was a person that spent his time, spent his energy, spent his intellect, used his position and office to try to advocate, for this young lady. As I speak to you, we've gone through a lot of these things to a point that some of us, here in Rivers State feel very reluctant sometimes when things like this come up, because at the end of the day, we are often not, given the credit that we deserve. Civil society people are not paid, don't have salaries or whatever. In fact, I served as the PRO and spokesperson for our own coalition of civil society for 6 straight years. And I can tell you that in that 6 years, I spent my own millions advocating and helping people who were downtrodden, people who were oppressed, people who had issues. And I never took a dime from anybody. In fact, I'm using this medium here today to throw a challenge that if you can find anybody who said that Solomon, for the 6 years I served, demanded for the first 1,000 from them before, during, and after any issue that I advocated for them, then I'll come out and make a refund and a public apology. And we do these things all the time. In fact, a very serious issue happened in 2021 when a young man by the name Agoboye had a son named Benaya who had a heart problem from birth. And he ran the town because he was an ordinary, citizen who had no means. And a very good and respected friend of mine, Lexi M, brought his ordeal to my attention, begging me that I should use, my position and my platform to try to advocate for him, telling me all the people who had made promises, all the government officials who had made promises and failed, and asked me to help use my platform because they tend to listen to what I say. And I used my platform to advocate, wrote a very compelling and emotional appeal, for the support of the public and the government for the surgery and the transplant of the child Benaya. Of course, I reached out to some bloggers and some people who were in the public space, and luckily for us, Linda Ikeji came through that time, shared the post that I made, and of course, in less than no time, it went viral, and it became a global issue because we had people who were coming from Switzerland, UK, US, and foundations, organizations who were coming, through to try to help this guy. And along the line, we raised about 280 something million naira from the account that, I posted for that support, which happened to be the account of the father of the child, plus other supports that, he got. It became a global issue. People came from Switzerland, people came from US wanting to take up the treatment of the child, wanting to relocate the family. In fact, it was a turning point for the life of that family. But guess what happened? At the end of the day, people from Lagos came in, took over the whole thing, and even started accusing me and Lexi and some of the people, who actually brought up this matter, to the public, domain. And they did this thing just to cut us off so that they can now begin to ride the wave of the publicity that the incident had brought. But that was not an issue. But I had an issue when the person who was in question, the man who I had helped and supported in several times, several occasions, began to work against me, saying things and telling people how he had spent so much money for the people who helped him and all of those things, whereas we were not given any dime. In fact, it was a time when my integrity was tested, because had I used my own account, there is nothing I would have said in this world that would have made people to believe that I didn't have any share in all the money that was raised. In fact, the moment he raised a lot of money, within 3 days, he relocated from his house, went to live in a hotel. Shortly after, he left Port Harcourt, went to Lagos, and guess who he began rolling with? Daddy Freeze. Daddy Freeze became, his spokesperson and the person who was now doing everything, for him, and took a very wholesome part of that money, for all the things that he claimed he was doing for Agoboye. And at the end of the day, people were sent to come and investigate me because of the narrative that, Agoboye was giving about the help that, I put out to help him. Until today, it remained a lesson I learned, but it didn't deter me. Ever since then, I've still been doing what, I was called to do, because I see the work I do in the civil society as a calling. Most times, when matter comes up, I will be the one to take care of the people who had the issue. I'll use my own money, make sure that they have the protection they need, make sure that they have the comfort that they need, to ensure that they come forward whenever they are needed. And we keep doing this thing. But the village teacher mentality syndrome here in River State will always make, the people that we support most time go around and turn against us the moment they feel that they now have a better or a bigger or a superior support, that is coming from mostly Lagos or Abuja. Of course, it's not a bad thing, that people should elevate, or maybe people who had been downtrodden for a very long time, when they see people who come with so much promises and support, it's only natural that they will tilt towards that direction. But in doing so, don't forget how you began. Don't forget those who lifted you up when you were down. Don't forget the people who started out to advocate with you, because it is always very difficult. And if you remember, most times when issues like that come up, if you go to check the background of these people, you see that their position from where they are always at the lowest, because that is always what evokes the emotion and the drive that will make people to start pushing for them. But the moment they get to a certain level, like we are seeing with Winnie right now, you see the narrative will change. They immediately forget the people who were there with them from the beginning. Today, we've seen, people giving her, ambassadorial, offers. We've seen, Burna Boy had stepped in, VDM had come through, and all of those things. They are all good things. But then, the Relief International NGO, who hosted the first press briefing, the second press briefing, and was coordinating, with other human rights organizations, FIDA and all of those people, they are no longer mentioned, because, of course, right now, joy has come, help had arrived, and all of that. And we now live, she now lives in the euphoria, that she has arrived. It's not a very good thing, because what this does is that it prevents other people who would, be in similar position tomorrow from getting the necessary help, support, and assistance that they deserve. Because, of course, we are human beings, like I said from the beginning. We feel pain, we have emotions. And when things like this happen, there is a tendency for withdrawal. when you put in your effort, put in your resources, take the risk and all of those things to fight for people who are, trampled upon. And at the end of the day, tend not to remember all the effort that you put in. It is sad, and we need to change, this attitude. Today, as we speak, River State does not have somebody that is a rallying point, like an icon that they can rally round. Not because we don't have people who are doing marvelously well, not because we don't have people who would have had the platform, but because we always disregard our own. We want it to come from Lagos. We want it to come from Abuja. We have a K.O. Baba in this town that has done so much for this city. And I stand here to tell you that this city of Port Harcourt owed that young man a lot. Is it in entertainment? Is it in human rights advocacy? Is it in general awareness and support and everything? K.O. Baba would have also been our own VDM. Chetam Mwala would also be, our own Deji Adeyanju and all of those things. But of course, they are here in River State. And since they are here and we had that syndrome, nothing that they do is appreciated. It's unfortunate, and we have to change that mentality. The thing is affecting us to a great extent, even in our entertainment industry. Of course, you might say that Lagos is the upstream, and then everybody who wants success will have the tendency of going towards that direction. But then, here in Rivers State, there was a time when even those in Lagos prayed and hoped that they will have something to do here in Port Harcourt and in Rivers State, because this was where, the money was. But today, look at where we are, because we don't support our own, because we always talk down on our own, because we always look down on our own. And the people in the civil society have suffered so much. I know a lot of persons who have been complaining behind the scene, but they've not had the courage or the platform to come out to speak about this issue the way I'm doing. It is sad, but we have to change this tide. Every society needs people like us, people who will live their life for the cause, of the land. But of course, we also have our needs. We have families, we have, responsibilities and all of that. And like I said, maybe some few organizations might get support, but a bulk of the CLOs in Rivers State doesn't get support, but they keep pushing and keep doing what they are doing. So the least that the public can do is to appreciate them, at least with the word of mouth, not to denigrate their very hard and risky effort that they are putting in to ensure that we have a stability that is needed for a civil society. Well, like I always say, corruption buried under secret destroys a nation. Truth elevates, truth motivates, and above all, truth heals. If you've not subscribed to this channel, do so that you always get an update each time we put out any episode, our podcast, Truth That Heals. Once again, thank you. God bless you.